Thank you, Madam Speaker. I start by offering a caveat. I've been involved in so many committees involving this particular scam. It was going to be a real challenge to keep my comments to 10 minutes. I literally could speak for hours. But happy to highlight some of the important points for you today. I'm going to start by reiterating our common sense conservative plan. We as conservatives, we will axe the tax, we will build the homes, we will fix the budget, and we will stop the crime. Because after 8 years of this worn-out, tired Liberal-NDP government, Canadians have endured unprecedented levels of corruption. Today we are debating our Conservative motion which calls on the Liberal government to table the full cost of the Arrive scam within 100 days of today's date and to reclaim all money that was paid to contractors and subcontractors who actually performed no work. This is the app, according to the Prime Minister, that should have cost the taxpayer $80,000. But now we have the Auditor General guessing at the amount at $60 million, could be $70 million, could be $80 million. We don't know how much more than $60 million. What we do know is it's at least 750 times more than the original cost. Now, we hear in the government, at least I've been keeping track of this for several weeks now, several ministers, if not several members of the backbench, commenting that if the rules were broken and there was malfeasance, if there was criminality, those responsible will be held accountable for their actions. But, Madam Speaker, what we have not heard at all is any minister, including the Prime Minister, indicating in the House that the buck stops with the government.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Where was the Prime Minister? Where was the Minister for Procurement? Where was the Minister for
Can I interrupt the Honourable Member? The Honourable Member has the phone near the mic and it's creating some interference. Thank you very much.
Better.
Thank you.
Must be. Yeah. Where was all those ministers for a 3+ year period? Were they completely tone deaf? Were they completely derelict in their responsibility? Were they completely asleep at the wheel? Or were they simply complicit with the fleecing of the Canadian taxpayer to at least $60 million? Now, why is that important? It's important because they need to look themselves in the mirror and they need to say to Canadians, we did not provide the appropriate ministerial oversight. I have heard from deputy ministers, I've heard from several presidents of all the impugned agencies as laid out in the Auditor General's report. Every one of them, Madam Speaker, confirmed regular, consistent, numerous discussions with the appropriate minister. Surely, all of them, including the Prime Minister, knew how badly this Arrive scam was going out of control. They had the opportunity to rein in this out-of-control spending. They had the opportunity to stop the criminality, but they didn't. And that's what Canadians should be most appalled about, not necessarily just our professional public servants and those individuals they contracted with, like GC Strategies. They're under investigation. But quite frankly, this government needs to be under investigation. This Prime Minister needs to be under investigation. But we all know what's going to happen, Madam Speaker, because we knew about it in the Aga Khan scandal. We knew about it in the SNC-Lavalin scandal. There is a two-tier level of justice when it comes to dealing with government misconduct and potential government criminality and potential criminality involving the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister has the luxury of hiding behind cabinet confidentiality. As I put to the RCMP Commissioner today in the Ethics Committee, are Canadians led to believe that the Prime Minister can engage in a whole host of criminal activities and simply hide behind the shield of cabinet confidentiality? He didn't have a good response, I'll admit, Madam Speaker, but certainly that's what it looks like. As a former Crown prosecutor, there was ample evidence to support the charge of obstruction of justice by Justin Trudeau and how he interfered, my apologies, the Prime Minister, ample evidence as to how he obstructed justice in his campaign of trying to influence the actions of the former First Indigenous Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould. But again, the government wouldn't release the documents. They wouldn't release the documents to the Ethics Commissioner. They certainly wouldn't release it to the RCMP, but they talk about how independent the RCMP is. They talk about we are going to be transparent. We're going to be accountable. The Prime Minister promised Canadians that, Madam Speaker, in 2015. And look at the mess that they have created in the last 8 years. They are the most corrupt government this country has ever seen. No question. And the member for Winnipeg North can laugh all he wants because he knows it's the truth. He knows how difficult it is day after day after day to sit in this House and to defend the illegal actions of this government. So as I said, I've got so much to say here, Madam Speaker, you know, I don't even know where to go. And now we've got the NDP caucus. We've got the NDP caucus who are now blindly following along with everything that the Liberal government has to say. They're so hypocritical. They will challenge and they will fiercely try to argue that we should be holding this government to account, yet they blindly support the Liberal government time after time after time. And what they did in this particular scandal is on at least 8 occasions, Madam Speaker, they voted with the Liberal government to continue funding this particular scam. If they had voted no on at least one occasion, if not all those occasions, I certainly wouldn't be standing here today and talking about the scandal and the cost to the taxpayers. So the last thing I'm going to conclude, I've got a minute and a half, Madam Speaker, is after 8 years, again, this Liberal government has proven itself both financially incompetent and riddled with corruption. Common sense Conservatives will get to the bottom of this scandal and bring home accountability for taxpayers. Therefore, I stand in this House today, along with my Conservative colleagues, to hold this government accountable for its reckless and irresponsible use of taxpayers' dollars. Conservatives demand that the government take decisive action to recover all funds paid to the ArriveCan contractors and, most importantly, the subcontractors who failed to deliver on their obligations. That we're asking within 100 days of this motion being adopted. We are calling on the Prime Minister to present a comprehensive report to the House demonstrating the successful repayment of those taxpayer funds. This motion, Madam Speaker, is a crucial step in bringing home accountability for Canadians and is well within the federal government's mandate. With a commitment to common sense governance, Conservatives are steadfast in unraveling the scandal and restoring accountability for taxpayers, and I encourage all members in this House to stand and support our common sense motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. The word that comes to my mind is, wow, that's quite the extreme in terms of statements coming from the member. So much for facts, Madam Speaker, but just it's kind of like say it as you, I hope he doesn't actually believe 90% of the things that he actually said, Madam Speaker. You know, the question that comes to my mind is that I wonder if he would hold the very same standard to his own leader when his leader literally was responsible for the issuing of millions of dollars in contracts to Cordell Systems and Consulting, which is the very same people that is with GC Strategies. Would he apply the same principles to the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada that he's applying to others? Maybe he should skip the character assassinations and focus on the issue. Tell me, if he's not going to answer that question, maybe he will tell me an idea that the Conservatives have in terms of how we can improve the procurement process.
The Honourable Member for Brantford-Brant.
Thank you to my colleague for that question. I stand 100% of every word that I've said in my speech. I will defend that inside and outside this House, and I will continue to use those same talking points. That's how I respond to my friend's question.
Questions et commentaires, l'honorable député.
Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I have the pleasure to work with my colleague at the OGO committee, and we have been studying since October of 2022 the ArriveCan question with tens of thousands of pages to read. It's very passionate. I was wondering, we have a motion that was tabled with respect to Cordell Systems Consulting that had the same owners as GC Strategies. But I'm wondering at the end of the day, how many other companies should we be verifying? And does he think that the system we had with ArriveCan is not broader and more widespread than we thought?
I thank my friend for that question, and I too enjoy working with her on a number of committees. I always value her sage advice and her thoughtful questions and the probing way that she too wants to get to the bottom of this. And I think she touched upon a very important point. We are basically speaking about, largely in this House, about GC Strategies and what it did to the procurement process within the ArriveScam context. But to the broader point, and to respond to my colleague, I think it's symbolic of what has been allowed to occur with this corrupt Liberal government. If it occurred with ArriveScan, one only has to wonder how many other millions, if not billions, of wasted dollars have gone to other similar contractors and subcontractors. So I think there's an excellent opportunity to expand this into many other ways onto many other committees. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for his interesting speech. Now, we do know that when the Conservatives were in power, of course, they did give over $7 million to GC Strategies and under its former name. We know that 4 million of those contracts were awarded when the Leader of the Opposition was the Parliamentary Secretary. And of course, we know that the Phoenix scandal, which the Auditor General has compared to ArriveCan, has the same sort of scandal behind it, which of course was done under the Conservatives government. My question to this member, though, is I appreciate this discussion today and have no problem going after GC, but I'm interested to hear if this member thinks that we should also be looking at McKinsey & Company, Deloitte, Price Waterhouse Coopers, Accenture, KMPG, Ernst & Young, who are also getting millions and millions of tax dollar money. Just wondering.
The Honourable Member for Brantford-Brant in 15 seconds.
Yeah, I thank my colleague for that question. If there was impropriety in the awarding of those contracts or any suspicions of criminality, yes, We should be looking at that.
You mean debate?